waiting for people to get in. We were going to talk. It's a little different because I didn't go live on Friday or Saturday. Friday because I didn't get home till like 8:30, 9 o'clock from the protest here locally, and then yesterday because I wanted all my people on Facebook to keep watching the protest because I know everybody was watching the Rochester protest. And that is far more important. I myself was also watching. I was getting a ton of messages during the protest as well, guys. I'm going to try to respond to you guys, but messaging me and asking me for links is not always the most efficient way to figure out where the Rochester links are, because I'll be honest with you, I get so many messages. It's hard for me to always respond quickly in a timely fashion to the point where it makes sense for you guys to message me. It's really nothing personal.
I'm sure there you go.
But yeah, so let's talk about this week in Buffalo before we get into Rochester. So this week on Tuesday, I believe, there was a march going down Hurdle, or was it Monday? And they had an encounter right by Empty Pockets there with a man with a knife. And there were, obviously, that had nothing to do with Empty Pockets, but it was in that general area. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the other thing. You could search Rochester Live and a bunch will show up. Yeah, messaging me, like I said, guys, it's just hard for me to always message back quickly. But, yeah, so the other thing that we should discuss. So, yeah, we had that encounter, which led to more protest, which led to a big demonstration outside of Empty Pockets, I think the day after, where the crowd actually came out of Empty Pockets, provoked the crowd. One man showed his ass. The guy who said he was the owner in the video was running his mouth. A woman who used to own a business on Hurdle, right next to, excuse me, where I used to work, Nikita Williams, she she was getting harassed, and they pushed her out into the street because they didn't want her by the business. So, and that sparked more protest going forward here in Buffalo. And finally, there was a protest. Excuse me again. There was a protest, I believe, the day after that as well. That was smaller. And then Friday, which was the big protest going down Hurdle, which was a great atmosphere, by the way, for those of you who were there. It was absolutely awesome. And so we had a good-sized protest on Friday. It was very peaceful outside. We marched up and down Hurdle. We got outside the D District. Miles Carter spoke. He was great. A lot of the usual people from the Liberation Collective spoke. And the Liberation Collective, who I was a little weary of at first, they really have been impressing me lately, if I'm honest with you guys. I know I was out for a little while with a rib injury, but, man, I was so impressed with how well that protest went, honestly. It was pretty incredible. And I think everything went very, very well. Everybody was ready for violence, including I was ready, in case something did happen because of everything that was being said. And it went incredibly peaceful. And that's how these protests should go. And it was amazing. Amazing for Buffalo to show up the way it did. I think there was probably about 200-300 people to start. And it was really awesome seeing how peaceful it went. Nothing got destroyed. Nobody got hurt. Everybody dispersed peacefully. I was probably one of the last 2 or 3 people to leave the Hurdle, Delaware location. So it went very, very well. I think we can be very proud of that. And that's been my experiences at the protest. Really, they've been positive. If you guys remember when everybody was in Niagara Square, they were occupying Niagara Square. They were all kinds of things, and there was free food, and it was a good sense of community. And I feel like we've seen that coming forward, and I think that is huge. We've seen community come together. You don't necessarily have to agree with the protest to agree with the community. Thank you, Rhonda. And the community coming together is the most important thing. This dialogue being started is important, but we really have to look at how we're going to make change moving forward. And a big part of that is getting these people out of office that locally that have been dragging their feet on issues. Darius Pridgeon, Byron Brown, Councilmember Rivera. These guys got to go. And I think the city is starting to understand that. And I think this has brought a big push on local politics. And I think that's another awesome thing, which kind of segues into what I want to get into. Jess, if you can please remind me of the name of the group so I don't get it wrong. But we have a meeting in Bidwell Park today for you guys that live in Buffalo and want to talk about city council and local politics at 6 p.m. on the Cafe Aroma side of Bidwell Park. If you are going to be in Buffalo, you should show up. It would be very cool to have you guys there and talk with us. We want to keep influencing local politics. We want these guys to be held accountable for what they say, what they do, and most importantly, we want to see the money allocated how it should be allocated for the people of Buffalo, because they've been doing a horrible job. If you guys remember the budget they voted on, where they didn't even know what the budget was, and everybody voted for it. It was absolutely insane. And these are things we have to hold them accountable for. So this is very important. All right, the group name is Buffalo Citizens for Council Accountability. There's a meetup at 6 p.m. the Cafe Aroma side of Bidwell Park. And you guys should show up. And then let's get into Rochester now, because there was a video that came out this week in Rochester. It got brought to the mayor's attention August 4th. It got leaked publicly on September 3rd, I believe. So the mayor, if you guys know, everyone knows, Daniel Prude, I believe his name was, or Purdue. He was naked. He was having a mental episode. They put the spit hood on him, and he died a week later after being choked. And the results were from complications from asphyxiation, or basically he got choked. And and the mayor said in her press conference, well, that wasn't brought to my attention until September, August 4th. Well, okay, that was a month ago. So you had a whole month before this video went public, right? A whole month to suspend those officers and release the video publicly saying all those officers have been suspended. There is an investigation going. And a big mess could have been avoided, I feel like, if that's what you did. But instead, you waited till the video went publicly, and then you tried to save face. And unfortunately, people are seeing right through that, just like they were in Buffalo with Mayor Brown, where Mayor Brown is constantly trying to save face, but he's not actually doing anything for anybody. Right? That's a real issue we have right now. Right? All right, sorry. Yeah, so I'm talking about Mayor Lovely in Rochester right now. And, we see them dragging their feet on all these different things. And it's very real. And we see it in Buffalo, and we just seen it in Rochester. And these are the results, unfortunately. And, these things got to be taken care of quicker. And I think that's the message. I mean, this should never have happened. But as soon as the mayor found out about it, these officers should have been suspended. There should have been an investigation open. Instead, a month later has passed, and they were still patrolling the streets. And who knows what happened while they were patrolling the streets, or what could have happened. Honestly, that's, I'm just being real with you guys. So this is a real thing that needs to be talked about. Politicians coming out and saving face is not enough. You need to actively do something to create change. We put you in that position. We'll take your ass out if you're not going to do your job. That's what we need to say, guys. They work for us. The police officers work for us. All the government workers, everybody that works in City Hall, they work for us. That man that flashed his ass at the protesters worked for the sewer authority. He was a government employee. We pay him. If we pay you and we decide you no longer have that job, you don't have it, just like any other job. I'm sorry. That's how it needs to work. And that is the issue with all of these government unions. These government unions are bad because they protect all employees, but especially bad employees. All right. Yeah. I know the mayors aren't in charge of the police department, and I know that's what the police commissioner is there for. And she says the police chief lied to her about how he died, but he should be fired. I mean, you're right, Victoria, you're completely right. We need accountability there, too. If the police chief lied to the mayor, he should no longer have a fucking job either. Excuse my language. It's amazing to me that people are just so okay with these politicians constantly lying to them all the time. And people just, yay, yay, after they save face. No, they're not being progressive. They're trying to save their careers because they know they won't have a job anymore. It's time we see through that, honestly. We need to look through the facade. We need to see what these guys are doing. What have they done in office? If they're only doing stuff when these videos get made public, then there's a real issue there. We need to stop. We need to stop with the pony show and demand real accountability. So again, if you believe in all that, you should come to that meeting today. If you're believing the accountability, but back to what was going on in Rochester. So protests have been bad. They've been violent, and a lot of which, as I seen, were, I get it. People are throwing water bottles and stuff at the cops, but they're coming back and they're responding with extreme violence. And unfortunately, when you respond with violence to other people, they're going to respond likewise, and it's just going to keep escalating situations, right? And it's bad. Unfortunately, one of our own got arrested last night, Juan. Juan got arrested last night in Rochester, fighting the good fight like he's been the entire time. And it's very sad and very upsetting. Guys, this is a real issue we're fighting for. And the violence, a lot of people are saying, well, it discredits the movement. But the reality is, my experience is these protests have been very, very peaceful for the most part, with very select pockets of violence. Honestly. Very, very few pockets of violence. If you look at all the news articles coming out that said one was 92%, one was 95% peaceful protest. That's how it really has been. And anyone who's actually been to the protest, you've seen the sense of community, people giving out food, people giving to each other, people talking, laughing, people of different opinions who would never have otherwise come together if it wasn't for this issue, coming together and talking and creating dialogue. These are important steps. And I get it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, right now, your reality depends on the news you watch. And it's sad because it should not be that way. Reality should just be reality and should not depend on the news we're watching or the politicians we listen to. How should they? Well, I mean, it's water bottles. If your response to water bottles being thrown at you is tear gas and rubber bullets, there's a problem, Rhonda. You should be more disciplined than that. Honestly, now there are things, obviously, I don't want people to start firing at police. These are not things I want. But the more the police escalate the situation, the worse it's going to get. And I'm saying it as someone who's been out there and was getting shot at with rubber bullets. It's easy for people to sit back who've never been to any of these protests and, oh yeah, shoot them, get them, get them. You've never been there. If you haven't been there, you don't know. It really is peaceful. The police escalate the situations, and that's just the sad reality of it. And I get it. Police are there to protect property. They're there to protect, but isn't people's lives more important than property? I mean, there's a lot of issues we have here. And, and that's really, the police just respond to this water bottles and stuff being thrown at them. What's the alternative? The alternative response is to not act like an animal and start shooting at these people with rubber bullets and tear gas. That's the alternative. Stand there and be a fucking man or don't do your job. Because your job is not to go and shoot protesters with rubber bullets. Your job is to stand there and protect these people and protect the property. But if they're not damaging the property and all they're doing is throwing water bottles at you, you're not mentally strong enough to be a police officer. Right? As if you're a cashier in a store and someone throws water in your face, you can't just go out and start swinging at them and punch them. You'll get fired. Police officers need to be held to the same standard as that. That's how it needs to go. But yeah, and that's why I stream. I want you guys to see what's really going on. If you guys see, these protests have been peaceful. And in Buffalo, the police were out for the last protest, but it was very peaceful. And they did a good job. And it was very well organized. It was probably the most well-organized protest I've been to so far in Buffalo. And I think as people get more experience, they're going to get more and more organized in their protesting. And it's going to be an incredible thing to watch because the Liberation Collective is a lot of young activists. And I don't always agree with all of them, but they have been very impressive. Do you know why it was declared an unlawful assembly? So I don't know who you're asking, Victoria. I mean, they can declare unlawful assembly for any number of reasons. Um, if you're blocking traffic, they can declare unlawful assembly. If they've done it, I mean, we've seen it in Buffalo where they've declared unlawful assemblies at peaceful protest, and it escalates the situation. I know they were blocking Niagara Square, but that was a peaceful protest, and there was no violence or anything the one day. And the police declared it unlawful assembly. They marched out all their people, right? Yes, there's a curfew, but curfews are unconstitutional anyways, but let's not get into that. So they marched out all their people and the situation escalated. People got it, but eventually it did disperse peacefully. But for a while it was very tense. Now, yeah, best outcome is to notice the first domino fall like I did. Twitter warned me about the pandemic through the human rights pandemic music theory. Okay. That's interesting. Can I ask why isn't the person arrested for assault with the water bottle as well as the officer not being held accountable for the brutality? Okay. So, number one, I believe with all the video footage, they are going to be, as they always do with these protests, they always make arrests afterwards for people that act out. So, that is something to keep in mind, Mike. Now, as far, again, it's a water bottle. If I don't know. If you throw a water bottle at somebody, is it assault? Like if I just threw a water bottle at a normal person? Honestly, I don't know if it is or isn't. Is that like an arrestable offense? Because if it's not an arrestable offense for me, for someone to throw a water bottle at me, it shouldn't be an arrestable offense to throw a water bottle at a police officer, as far as I'm concerned. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think. Look, I don't think police officers should really be held, to that they treated very differently than a normal person unless they're like on the job or like responding to a crime. Other than that, they should just be treated as everyday people, as like anyone else. As long as there is no damage to surrounding property, I think that they can protest as long as they want. Okay, I mean, that's understandable, but I mean, protest that damage property, it would be all right. Well, then the same set of laws. Then yes, you have to arrest the person that did that, Mike. And that's, again, you can't, like, that's what I mean, though. So, like, if police, for instance, tear gas protesters, right, they call that non-lethal force. But if you pick up that tear gas canister, throw it back at cops, it's assault with a deadly weapon. Huh. Wow. Who would have thought? Honestly, it's insane. Assault with a deadly weapon for something they use to disperse crowds if you throw it back at them. But they call it non-lethal. So make up your mind. Is it deadly or is it not deadly? Is it only deadly to police somehow? Please inform me. And these are the double standards we kind of got to get rid of. If they're going to tear gas protesters, protesters are going to throw them back at them. Well, you can't consider it assault with a deadly weapon if you're calling it non-lethal. It's that simple. And it's just one of those things where, like, I think people are so fed up with everything right now. Honestly, everyone's so fed up. Yeah, exactly, Mike. But that's what I mean by the double standard. So, like, certain things that, like, a taser, for instance, they called it when they shot the one guy because he had the police officer taser and pointed it at a cop. And they said, well, that's considered a deadly weapon. But they use it on police officers at, they call it non-lethal force when police officers use it. So you have to make up your mind if it's lethal or non-lethal force, and it needs to be consistent for police officers and civilians. Straight. I don't care. And but that's how it needs to be, because as long as the police think they're so much better than the citizens, there's always going to be this discourse between police and citizens. And we need to fix that, because we should feel protected when we have the police. We shouldn't be scared for our lives every time we see the police. We shouldn't be nervous. We should look at the police as we look at firefighters or EMTs. They're doing a public service. But unfortunately, they're not acting like that. And you put people in positions of power and it all goes to their head, because the people that are attracted to power, they're always going to want to make themselves more powerful. Maybe they have a complex where they're narcissistic. I don't know. But they want to be in power. People that want to be in positions of power, if you put them like with a gun in their hand to patrol neighborhoods, they're going to abuse that power. So we need to psychologically screen these police officers better. We need to get police officers the help they need when they need it. But when a police officer shoots somebody, instead of waiting for the video to come out, we need an instant investigation every time. And that police officer needs to be held for at least 48 hours, brought in for psychiatric evaluations while everything is being examined so nothing can be tampered with. And that's how it needs to be treated. Because if we took those steps, I think we avoid a lot of issues. We avoid a lot of protest over the last few months. We avoid a lot of destruction in these cities. We avoid a lot of loss and senseless violence. And that's what we need, guys. And we need to achieve that. I don't want the senseless violence, but it's going to keep happening until people feel they're protected and they're being treated fairly and not like animals. Honestly. We should be able to exercise our First Amendment rights without fear. Yes, exactly, Victoria. I completely agree. We should be able to exercise our First Amendment. We should be able to exercise all of our rights, uh, guaranteed without fear. I would like to see much more affordable mental health. I agree with that too, Rhonda. I think taking care of the community is a big part. And a big part of that is everyone's been saying defunding the police. I've been calling it demilitarizing the police. That means not spending all this extra money on toys for them, right? That means they need to do all this. We need to stop getting them these armored vehicles and put that money into the community. Because at the end of the day, that money needs to go to the kids. If we put the money into the children, we actively prevent crime going forward. If we put money into community resources, we actively prevent crime going forward by educating people, by helping people when they're down, by showing humanity to people. Because if you show humanity to someone, that goes a long way on their mental health, and you need to treat these people like they're humans. That's why I feel like anyone who wants to be a police officer should be mentally investigated. I believe anyone who's applying for any kind of public service job should be investigated for their intentions because the people are paying them. Anybody can go into any government job with the most honest intentions. I don't care if it's a police officer. I don't care if it's a firefighter. You can have the best intentions, but you can be put in a position where you have all that information, all that access to power, no matter what the job in public service is, and all the access to powerful people, and you can abuse it. And these are important things we need to address. Also, nepotism is another big thing we see playing out, and it's unfortunate. This whole summer has been about Black Lives Matter, riots, protests, killing, and COVID-19. It's sad, really. Well, and I think so. If you want my opinion on how these protests got as big as they did, a lot of the country is laid off right now because of coronavirus. Because of that, everyone's paying closer attention. So when these videos surfaced of all of this, it sparked large protest and anger because people, instead of going to work and having their usual distractions like sports, they don't have that. So now we're watching the news more. We're paying attention more because of the coronavirus, Mike. And that's what led to a lot of this. And unfortunately, not all that, it led to a very, very crazy summer in a lot of the country. And we need progress. If progress doesn't come, I don't know if the protests honestly stop. And I'm just being real with you. If you don't see progress, I don't know how you make it stop. I'm genuinely trying to figure that out. Too many times police are called out and it's a person suffering from mental health issue and they aren't trained properly to deal with those situations. No, you're completely right, Rhonda. And that's why I think we need to involve more social workers with the police department. So if you look at a squad car and you say, all right, each squad car is a police officer and a social worker, that might be the way to go. Instead of 2 police officers per car, put a police officer and a social worker per car. This way, in case you have the police officer for backup, but if it's a mental health issue, the social worker can take care of it. And if things do get violent or whatever, then you have a police officer to come in and jump in. Because a lot of these situations, if it was just social worker one-on-one talking, we would be okay. Because a lot of the times people are provoked when they see the police officers grab their weapons and that, especially in a mental health crisis. And that's something we generally need to consider, Rhonda. I think that's a very good point you bring up, though, is yes, police are called for a lot of mental health issues. And that's why, again, a police officer, social worker per car might be the way to go. And again, more training on de-escalating situations. In Boston, they have a policy where police officers get out of their car for an hour every shift and walk around the communities they police. Okay? So when you have them doing that, that's a great idea. You need them to be involved in their community. But again, police officers should also have to live in the communities they police, as should any other public servant. Like if you're in city council, if you work for the sewer authority, you have to live in the city of Buffalo. Well, why don't police officers? It's a little ridiculous, if you ask me. Safety for all makes a tough situation. I was a crisis counselor for the county for many years. Oh, I believe it, Rhonda. I mean, as a police officer, as a counselor, you see a lot of horrible things. And that is a real issue, I think, that needs to be addressed. But that's also why I think mental health is such a big thing we need to start addressing. And we need to take this stuff very, very seriously. But, if you treat people like animals, like the police have done for so long and how they've been treating these protesters, they treat them like animals, well, they're going to respond that way. That's why jails, you put people in cages, they're gonna respond that way. It's basic. All right, all right. So we have quite a bit of comments coming in. People, including police, need mental health medications. Yes, okay, I agree with that. I don't know. I've never really talked to a psychiatrist or anything like that. I deal with I try to talk to people I'm comfortable with, and I think everybody kind of has their mental health is like any other thing. It's very personalized, and we need to look at that too. Whereas, like, I don't feel comfortable talking to a counselor, but I'll sit down with like a friend, and I'll talk to them about anything, and it helps me a lot personally. So I think, and it's basic things. People, I think with how much we're locked in the house recently, I think that leads to depression because people aren't going outside and playing and doing all the riding their bikes. Do something to get outside. Play football, play soccer. You want to play soccer, ride your bike? Hit me up. I'll play soccer, ride my bike with you. I love that stuff. Like, honestly, but that's the stuff you need to do. Physical health and mental health go hand in hand. And I think preventing crime and police, they're not the same thing. Police respond to crime, they don't prevent crime. To actively prevent crime, you need to put resources into communities. This way, people aren't desperate because, people that are stealing food for their family, and then they get locked up, well, they just needed to feed their family, and had they had the resources, they would be fine. And I'm a libertarian. I'm a conservative leaning person, and that's just the reality of it. I'm not saying that police aren't out of control. I feel like if police walked by and beat people like they used to, police would be able. Yeah, I mean, so yeah. Don't get me wrong. No one's ever said there's not good police officers, but the police officers, they stick together and they protect the bad police officers, and I think that's where a lot of the issue comes from. And they don't. And I get it. Like, it's a brotherhood kind of thing, but at the same time, like, your job should be to the community, not to the brotherhood. I watched a very good video from Audit the other day on YouTube, and it was a police officer who had a search warrant, local police who had a search warrant for a sheriff's cell phone. And the police officer, they let this guy walk around with a cell phone in his hand, potentially delete stuff, doing all this crazy things. This guy was a complete jackass to the police officers. Had it been a normal citizen talking to a cop like that, they would have tased him. But it was a sheriff, so they let him go. They locked down the whole department and everything, but they gave him all that privilege because he was a cop, and that proved a little bit. And the sheriff deputies were actively protecting the sheriff and not following the law, which was the search warrant that needed to be executed. Instead, they were protecting the sheriff, which proved one thing, that their loyalty to the brotherhood was more than their loyalty to the law, and that is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. And that's just one example, but I think it's a powerful example. And I think that's what we need to look at is, if you want to uphold the law, you need to uphold the law. Your duty's not to your brothers in blue. Your duty is to the law, the Constitution. That's what your duty is to. And we need to just go with that. Like, and that's the problem. If police were doing their jobs, we wouldn't have a lot of these issues we have today if jobs were being done right. It's just the sad truth of it right now, and I wish it wasn't that way because my dad's ex-military. My dad's a corrections officer. I have great uncles who were Erie County sheriff deputies, I believe. I believe they were Erie County sheriff deputies. Maybe it was another county. Maybe it was Niagara, but they were sheriff deputy. I'm not against cops completely. I just see a system that is not working as it should. And if the system is working as it should, then it needs to be dealt with and restructured in a way where it's not. Because we have police officers responding to crimes that don't bother anybody. They're arresting people for possession of like meth instead of bringing them to get the help, which proves that it's all about punishing people instead of fixing people so they're ready to go back into society. And the reality of it is when you're in jail, you should be getting ready to go back into society. Because if you're just living jail life and there to be punished, you're going to be accustomed to jail life and you're not going to be able to break that cycle. They're not getting people ready to go back out into society. The whole system is not working. And we need to seriously think about that. I've been dealing with some shitty cops in Cheektowaga. I'm not black, obviously. There's a lot of shitty cops who don't do. No, exactly, Mike. Bad cops affect everybody, no matter what. But the Black Lives Matter movement is just it. That's just when police killings of black people are what was it like 41%, and they make up 17% of the U.S. population. I think that's a serious issue, and it's just sad. And but it's a lot of cops who just can't do their job right. And the human that is the cop is not going to be perfect. We're never going to have a perfect human. Well, besides Emma Watson, of course. But other than that, we will never have a perfect human. And that is why it has been the way it has been. And I hate saying everything I said, but this is the truth, and that is why Black Lives Matter has come out, and that is why all of this has come out more powerful. Black Lives Matter is not a new movement. It was a movement when I was in high school. And that's just the reality, it really is just that. I know people are trying to start a mental health crisis intervention task force. Idea is you would call trying to read this 211 or something similar, trained social worker. That would be great, Tyler. That would be awesome if we had that. Honestly, I would love that. If you have 10 bad cops out of 300 in the other, yes, okay, I can agree with that, Charles, and that's something we need to keep addressing. That has to be handled by the courts, though. No, the police arrest and the courts decide what's to do with the person who may. No, what? No, they should be getting help. They shouldn't be thrown in prison. But that plays in Rhonda. We're not talking about just the police. It's a whole system. It's the prison industrial complex, which is the police who supply them with prisoners, the court systems who send the prisoners there, and the corrections officers who wait on the prisoners while they're there. It's a whole system, Rhonda. The police are one part of the problem system we have. And they are the ones in the public light, but we need to focus on it all. And that's just the truth. As long as we are locking people up for offenses they shouldn't be locked up for, and we're letting pedophiles go after 6 months. Brock Turner got 6 months in jail. He was a rapist. He raped a girl who was unconscious. He got 6 months in jail. A guy with possession of crack goes to jail for 4 or 5 years. How much sense does that make? How is that justice? It's not justice, Rhonda. That's a broken system exploiting people. And it's just sad. It is very sad. I'm not trying to argue with you, Rhonda. I really like you. I appreciate your comments and support. I just, this is just how it is sometimes. I get very passionate on this stuff. And it's just, but this is true. And we got to stop focusing on just the police and focus on more of it. Some private prisons have contracts with citizens to have a minimum of 90% fill capacity of states. Oh, I'm not sure about that, but I definitely have to look into that because you're not the. It's not the first time I heard something similar to that, Tyler. Wait, so what's the difference can be done when they are called for someone having a drug issue? The cops don't sentence. That's what I know what you're saying, Rhonda, and I'm talking about the whole system, not just the cops. I'm not just talking. Cops mishandle, but like when someone gets shot, I've heard it since I was a kid from my moms especially. When if someone got shot by the cops, my mom, oh, he had possession of drugs. He's a fucking scumbag. It's okay that he died. That's literally what my mom would say. My parents are not the best people, honestly, and that's what they would say. And that's not a death sentence. Committing a crime is not a death sentence. I don't care what anyone says. When you kill somebody, when you shoot and kill someone as a police officer, you're denying them of the right to due process. And you are then in violation of the Constitution of the United States, and it should be treated as such. And you should be charged for violating the Constitution of the United States because of that oath you swore. Meth addicts need to drink baking soda and sorry. Need to drink baking soda and herbal remedies as detox rather than going to jail. Okay. I've never heard of baking soda and I honestly, I mean, I smoke weed. I don't really do anything else. I don't even drink alcohol anymore. I haven't drank alcohol in like a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. When someone calls 911 for an issue that isn't a violent crime, someone other than the officer should respond. But yes, I mean, exactly. No. And victimless crimes can destroy people's lives. I mean, someone's driving without a license and that's the only way that she can go to work to get food for her kids and pay for her rent, and she's a single mother. That's not right. They impound her car. They find her thousands of dollars. She can't pay her rent. She gets evicted. She can't take care of her kids. She loses her kids. The kids go into a broken foster care system. The broken foster care system mistreats and abuses these kids, so they go out of society misfits, and they then commit crimes, and it feeds into a whole system. That is what we need to talk about, and that's what hasn't been being talked about. And I'm just, this is just me trying to be honest with you guys and like how I see this all. And I get it. Maybe I'm naive because I'm only 25 years old, but this is how it's been my whole life. And it's just, it's sad. It really is because we don't think about this stuff. And we don't think about other people's lives because we only have our personal experiences to go off of. And I'm guilty of it. Admittedly, I am guilty of not always looking through other people's perspective during situations. And I've gotten a lot better about it over the years. But it's just how it needs to be. All right, I can click on that link when I'm done. I can't click on it while I'm live, Tyler. But yeah, and this is all of this that led up to all these problems. They affect us at a local level, and we need to address these issues locally. Nationally, I mean, the president, he affects our life, but not a whole lot. And that's our local politicians, our local people. They are the ones that affect our DA, our sheriff, Sheriff Howard, who has done a horrible job with the Erie County Sheriff's Department. And my conservative friends and my liberal friends and my libertarian friends all agree on that. At least a lot of us do. Sheriff Howard has done an awful job in Erie County. Yeah, Mike, I'm all about it, man. Thank you, Rhonda. Yeah, no, I love seeing the young people get involved. That's why I've been so impressed with the Liberation Collective in Buffalo. Destroyed mind temporarily. Domestic abuse during pandemic is tough as self-guilt. Okay. Yeah, no, for sure, Justin. And like a big part of this, I think, is like we need to realize that everyone's different. But like that's why I think it's important for police officers to live in the communities they police. Because if you have a police officer living in Hamburg and they're patrolling the east side of Buffalo or the west side of Buffalo, how they don't understand what it's like to live in the city. I mean, how many people that live in the suburbs right now have lived in the city and have lived in a building where there has been multiple raids, heroin needles have been found in the building, prostitution rings, you've heard gunshots in the building, and you genuinely had to fear for your life every time you walked in the hallways. I have. How many other people have had to do that? That's something that people that never had to live in that situation will ever be able to relate to. Honestly. And I'm not black, but that's just the situation I lived in for a few years. There's been a narrative that shaped our parents' perspective that poor people were poor because they did something to deserve it. Hence, they should be punished. Now we only understand how long-term system. Yeah, exactly, Victor. I think you bring up a lot of good point. Yes, and and that is why cities are, inner city is set up the way it is with corner stores that charge way more than like going to a Walmart, because if you can't drive, you're constantly going to the corner store. Long term speaking, you're going to spend way more money on trying to feed your family than someone who has a car, a good job, lives in the suburbs, can go drive to Walmart every day. And that's just the reality of it. you know but that's why I think police should be a local thing. If you live in Hamburg, police in Hamburg. If you live in the east side of Buffalo, police the east side of Buffalo. If you live downtown, you police downtown. You need to be able to relate to the people that you are policing. It's a very serious issue we have in Buffalo, where all these guys live in Orchard Park, Hamburg. It's not okay. West Seneca. And they don't, what do they can't relate. They never found heroin needles in their buildings. They've never had a raid next door to their house at 3:30 in the morning. They never heard gunshots ring through the hallway of their building. They've never had to deal with prostitutes in their johns in the building before. Joseph, I agree with that. Cops walking around instead of in squad cars, I agree with, and I think that would be awesome, because it should be about policing communities, not trying to pull people over for speeding tickets and all that other stuff. Joseph, I agree with all that. But and this is the reality of it. Like, if you've never dealt with it, been in those situations, it's hard to relate. Making conversation with public, yes, no, and in Boston they have a policy where officers have to walk around outside of their squad car for an hour each shift. They park it and they walk around, and that's how it needs to be. There is a junior cops program, an Explorer program in Buffalo, for was it 15 to 19-year-olds. Even the WHO advises not to be sexually active during the pandemic. It adds another problem, including opioid. Okay. What if Barack Obama was president right now? I don't know. I don't play the what if game, Mike. I'm not a big Obama or Trump fan. I think they're both equally as dangerous to the country in very different ways. Can we at least agree race is a big part of everyone's problem with Trump? Would not be doing his job sending... Mike, we can play the what if game all day, but the reality is nobody knows. I mean, and that's part of the issue. I don't like Trump. I don't like politicians in general, because they're all part of this big system that oppresses people. But what I do remember is when Barack Obama sent the National Guard to Baltimore in 2015, and Fox News saying he's an authoritarian extremist. Look how he's treating the citizens. Basically the same thing CNN did to Trump for his response. So, I don't know. What if, Mike? Your reality depends on the news you watch. That's the problem. The president, no matter who he is, doesn't care about you. So I don't... Exactly, Jess. No, I agree. And the president doesn't affect our everyday lives. You know who does affect our everyday lives? School board members, council members, local committee members, the mayor, the police commissioner, the sheriff, the DA, local judges. They affect your life every day, not the president. With the tension right now, I really don't think the police walking around would be a positive thing. Maybe eventually. I can see that, Rhonda. I definitely can understand that argument too. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who that is. I've been paying attention to Howie Hawkins and Joe Jurgensen as far as the third party candidates go. Local, think exactly, Jess. Think local, guys. We need people. If you're politically minded, if you've been at all these events, if you're talking to people, if you have great ideas, get involved. Come to the meeting today at Bidwell, 6 p.m. 6 p.m., Ashker side of Bidwell, Buffalo Citizens for Council Accountability is the one throwing it. Message Jess if you want more information. She is the amazing person that has been doing a lot of work with it. You honestly message her if you have any questions on that. No wonder in theory how much different it would have been and where the blame would go. Yeah, I mean, I get that, Mike. I try not to play the what if games too much. I mean, I you know because I hear a lot of people say, well, it wouldn't things wouldn't be this bad if Hillary Clinton was president, and in my mind, I'm like, well, we'd still have a pandemic, we'd still have all these other issues, like things wouldn't be perfect. Like the president doesn't affect it that much. The reality is you just can't. You don't even have to know who your council member is. Just show exactly, Jess. Brian Higgins, Chuck Schumer, Mark Poloncarz are the real leaders. Oh God, Mark Pol. I'm yeah, Mark Poloncarz. He's in some hot water right now because he was caught liking angry cops, which was Officer Richard High, who's a Buffalo police officer under investigation, who's been suspended 2 times. Yeah, but yeah, guys, and like that's really how it needs to be. We just need to keep state of we need a people's media. I know, Joseph. That's what I'm trying to do, man. I'm doing my best. Oh, we got a YouTube comment here. Shrimp Zoo. Check out my. Okay, I'm from Buffalo and Rochester. All right, Shrimp. I'll check it out, man. But yeah, like and that's really just how it is right now, and it gonna be. I'm just glad to see everybody getting so involved, and I think if coronavirus did happen, there would be as many people involved right now as there is locally, both Buffalo, Rochester, and all over Western New York. I think it's a great thing. I know there was a Trump boat parades also all over the country yesterday, and as well as Black Lives Matter protest, and it really shows you how many different activists are in different communities, but also the difference in their beliefs and how these protests have been treated if you've been watching the different protest streams. The reality is, if his, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, that what if game gets dangerous. Like there's a lot of what if scenarios I think of in my head, and I just get nervous about thinking about it. But I'm gonna. It's 2 o'clock, guys. I'm gonna go get some food. I love all of you. I'm gonna have some T-shirts coming out later this week, as well as some other plans to do some work with Joshua Harris or Blue Raven, as you might know him. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys. I didn't do any of my banners like I normally do today. And, I love all you guys. Brandon, side note, I have a BA in journalism. I haven't had anything published in 6 years, but I can. Yes, Jess, any help I can get would be amazing because I am getting used to all of this still. I am still learning a lot every day from a lot of different people. But I love all you guys. It's been real. It's been a good conversation. Thank you guys for joining me. And we'll talk later on.